Defense Institute of Adda. With me on the panel, we have Dr. Vijay Kelkar sir and also Mr. Abhay Vaidya for this session. As we all know, PIC Adda is one program under Pune International Center, which is conducted once every month. PIC puts a lot of efforts on development of documentation and also multiple activities for different forums of social innovation, national security, energy and environment, arts and culture, and some other topics which are of national and international interest. The details of PIC can be, of course, seen on the website as puneinternationalcenter.org. Of multiple topics of concern in recent global scenario, one of the prominent topic for discussion and which is of utmost concern is environment. Global environmental issues is a phrase that refers to the effect of climate, of human actions in particular, and on fire of fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas, and large area deforestation, which causes emissions to the environment of large amount of greenhouse gases, of which the most important component is carbon dioxide. Such gases take up IR radiations, which are emitted by Earth's surface, and it acts as a blanket over the surface, keeping it much warmer, which results in climate change, which increases also in increase in rainfall, increase in frequency and intensity of extreme climatic events. This has negative impacts on human communities and also on ecosystem. Global warming is most important environmental problem, therefore, which world faces. In this context, the world carbon neutrality is seen to be coming up in a big way. It is getting evolved. To throw more light on this very important issue, we have eminent speaker today. Let me welcome Professor Amitav Mallik on his own PIC Adda today. Professor Mallik has been instrumental in establishing Pune International Center as a founder member, and he has been the PIC Adda is his own brainchild. Today he will speak on carbon neutrality, our gateway to future. Let me introduce him to the audience. Professor Amitav Mallik has been a defense scientist and advisor on National Security Advisory Board, NSAB. He was among the first in India to develop indigenous laser for defense applications that culminated his founding in LASTEC, that is Laser Science and Technology Center in Delhi. As a director LASTEC, his pioneering work on high-power lasers put India on the world map of laser weapons capability for satellite defense applications. Professor Mallik was awarded Padma Shri in 2002 for his outstanding contribution to the country. Earlier, Professor Mallik was associated as a professor of electronics at DIIT Pune for 10 years, and he served as a first advisor defense technology at Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C. between 1988 to 1994, where he established the foundation of Indo-US cooperation in critical defense technologies. This eventually led to the opening up of high-tech cooperations between India and the USA. From March 2003, Professor Mallik served as advisor on NSAB for 3 successive years till June 2006, contributing to strategic planning and also bringing new focus on space security as well as energy and environment security at National Security Council. Professor Mallik has authored 6 books on technology security issues and contributed to numerous technical and strategic analysis papers. All through, he has continued with postgrad teaching and mentoring of young scientists and engineers. He continues to write and speak on national security, technology management, and environmental protection issues in India and abroad. Professor Mallik has been one of the active trustees of Pune International Center and serves as a convener PIC Programs Committee. He also heads the Energy and Environment and Climate Change vertical of PIC. With this brief introduction, we welcome you, sir, and I request you to deliver your talk. Over to Professor Mallik.
Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta. It's nice to be speaking at a forum that I started way back in 2012. It was actually a brainchild of Dr. Kelkar, and we got talking about it, and yes, I was instrumental in making it happen. Nice memories. That time used to hold the Adda at the TMTC, Tata Management Training Center. Had a wonderful arena, beautiful building. And after the talk, after the question answer, we used to go to the dining room for lunch together. So all that, hopefully someday we'll come back once we come out of this COVID environment where we have to be online. So let me share my screen and start with the main topic.
I think you got the wrong stop here.
Just 1 second. Yeah. Just bear with me. Some problem. Yeah. Okay. Now.
I'll just put it into slideshow.
Yeah. All right. I think. Are we good, Sangeeta?
Yes, we are good. Yes.
All right. So the topic is carbon neutrality. I'm calling it the gateway to our future. For the simple reason that we have been carbon neutral all along. More than 800,000 years. Everything was going good. We used the Earth resources, Earth carbon for all our purposes. And it was the main resource for humankind to make progress, economic development, and everything. What has happened is that now that balance is disturbed. So this is just a list of how I will go about it. I'll skip that. So in the carbon cycle, what we do is, this is a nature's way of reusing carbon molecules, which travel from the atmosphere into organisms in the earth and then back into the atmosphere over and over again. And that's the carbon cycle. Photosynthesis, consumption, respiration by humans and animals, and decomposition after the organic material dies, they are all major processes through the carbon, that carbon moves through the carbon cycle. 1,000 to 100,000 million metric tons of carbon move through the carbon cycle every year. And of course, we are playing a much bigger role because we are burning fossil fuel for our energy, and that leads to a huge contribution of carbon emission. The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is rapidly rising. It is already greater than any time ever in the last, as I said, 800,000 years. But more pertinently, from the normal level of about 275 parts per million, ppm, which was in the pre-industrial era, it has reached almost 420 ppm, and it is still rising due to the increasing fossil fuel use and greenhouse gas emission caused by the humans. So we just want to refer back to what we can call the carbon balance. Global carbon cycle involves important exchanges and interchanges between global climate, atmospheric CO2, and the terrestrial and oceanic biospheres. Ecosystems do have the capacity.
Sir, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Sir, 1 minute. Sir, in the presentation, there is a block on the right side of the screen, because of which we are not able to see the screen completely. Many people are saying that also.
Why didn't? 1 second, we are trying to correct it.
Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah, just.
Yeah. Is it better?
Yes, now it's gone. Yes, perfect, sir. Yes.
Just remove this.
All right. So, yeah. So due to the high amounts of carbon being rapidly emitted into the atmosphere, while simultaneously also cutting down and destroying trees, forests, and oceans. What we have done eventually, effectively, is we have destroyed the carbon balance as such. More carbon dioxide getting added into the atmosphere will add to the global warming and aggravate the climate change. What we are already witnessing today is just about 1 degree higher than normal. I think many of you know that our average temperature is 15 degrees centigrade, and that is maintained so because of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So GHG, greenhouse gases, are actually useful, but beyond the level, it becomes a problem. So that is what we are facing here. Climate change is now recognized as one of the most serious threat to national security. Even human efficiencies decline very fast with rising temperature. Transport, travel, everything becomes very difficult. So human activities need to change drastically in order to change this deteriorating situation, to restore the carbon balance before it gets too late. And what do I mean by too late? What I mean is that beyond the point when the carbon concentration goes high, we will enter into what's called a tipping point of the environment and nature. Beyond the tipping point, there is a regenerative feedback effect where the human intervention can no longer be helpful. And that is what then that causes damage to our planet. Okay. How do I go next? Why is it not going to next?
Just click on.
Huh? It's frozen now. Yeah, okay. Okay. So carbon neutrality can be defined as the kind of a net zero emission scenario where to restore carbon balance by reducing carbon emission from human activities and of course increasing the carbon storage in natural carbon sinks. Reducing carbon emission can be done by moving towards clean energy sources and industry processes that produce less greenhouse gases, thereby transitioning to what we call low carbon economy. Removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it is also known as sequestration, carbon sequestration. All the global carbon and other greenhouse gases emission will have to be counterbalanced by the sequestration. It is important that we achieve this as quickly as possible so that we avoid severe climate impacts. Additional technologies solutions may be required for artificial removal of CO2 from air to bridge the gap between the emission and the sequestration. What has happened is we have gone way beyond our legitimate limit of use, and therefore there may be requirement of going negative with technology help, and that's the only way we can ensure that in future we will restore the balance. So therefore, I conclude that net carbon neutrality thus will be the real solution to achieving sustained economic progress and environmental stability both, and that will be the real gateway for our future. Next will be a look at what has been happening. There has been awareness of this rising imbalance, and for over 50 years, many things have happened. Excess CO2, along with greenhouse gases, have already increased our temperature to about average 1.5 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial state, and the effects are already visible. Historically, caring for the environment was equated to economic loss, but today it is just the reverse. World Economic Forum has projected that for every US dollar invested today for mitigating climate change or working for climate solutions will result in more than $7 saving within this 10 years. And implication of no climate action, therefore, are very evident. So major companies like Google were very fast to read this writing on the wall. They became carbon neutral within 10 years of their establishment. That was 2007 or 8. By 2020, Google ensured 100% renewable energy access by buying wherever they could get it. Then they ensured that their data centers across the world were operating 24/7 all through the year on renewable energy, so that every user of Google can now know that every email, net browsing, every other activity, it actually has zero carbon footprint in terms of the energy used. That's the kind of thing that we want to go to. What this demonstrates, however, is that the climate challenge world, which is what we are living in today, successful and profitable activities can be sustained without harming the environment, as is being proved by many forward-looking and pragmatic companies and nations. Of course, one part of the environment care is restoring carbon balance by going net carbon neutral. But there is another part which is equally important, and that is not allowing ecological destruction for economic gains. So these both two things, if one can keep in mind, then I think we will be going in the right direction. So other efforts and governance, we know that many other companies are also going into the same kind of a thing. We know that Bhutan is already carbon negative. So that is what, if many countries can go carbon negative, then it will help to go towards carbon neutrality. Copenhagen is an example where they have tasked themselves to become carbon neutral by 2025, which is just 3 years or 4 years ahead. In the last 10 years, it has committed to completely remove the city's 2 million tons of carbon footprint, even as the city continues to grow with 100,000 new inhabitants and 20,000 jobs every year. So these are the positive signs that we are seeing, and therefore it's very encouraging that the picture is not gloomy. In fact, the picture is quite bright, provided we keep it like that. To look back, we are aware of that the Montreal Protocol for ozone control worked very well. Kyoto Protocol for carbon dioxide reduction did not work at all. Then we all thought about the Paris Agreement in 2015, hoping that the nationally declared commitments by the countries will take us somewhere. But again, nothing has really worked. Therefore, we look at now, where are we going? It is basically the tug of war between the economics and the environment. So far we have seen that Earth's environment has had been the bedrock of modern economic, providing all material, all energy, everything. It also acts as a sink for whatever we throw out. But burning fossil fuel at an exponential rate for industrial growth and for wealth generation has created this huge imbalance, huge increase in GHG, particularly we are talking about CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, apart from the other gases. Rapid exploitation of Earth's resources, including forests and marine products, has also created a huge imbalance in the other sense, ecological imbalance. So what we call Earth Overshoot Day has already come down to something like 27th of July of this year, which actually means that we are consuming double of our own quota every year. Essentially, it means that we are borrowing from the future. We are borrowing from our kids and our grandkids. Unfortunately, temperature warming also causes rapid decline in human productivity, so there is an economic cost as well. Climate change is also perhaps the largest threat to world economy, fearing no one. If we can correctly design the environmental policies that can curb negative feedback from the economy on the environment, probably we'll be better off. Humanity, therefore, needs to focus on finding solutions which will help to simultaneously achieve economic progress as well as environmental stability. In other words, better quality of life for the present as well as for the future generation. Several alternative economic policies approaches such as donut economy are emerging that can support economic progress without any penalty on the environment.
Can you just move the laptop? The audience cannot see it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Am I good? Okay, sir?
Yes, you're good. Yes.
Okay. Now, so what are the policy shifts that are needed in the energy sector? Carbon neutrality goals are growing in popularity, and they appear to be very ambitious. At the same time, achieving net zero emission by 2050, almost becoming a standard demand for globally. I think if we don't do that, I think we are doomed. Achieving carbon neutrality needs a major transformation to clean and renewable energies, that is RE. Could be solar, wind, biogas at our level, in our country. There could be other options in other countries. Reducing the dependence of fossil fuel energy will have to be at every level, urban, state, national, even global. Unfortunately, industries also agree. Unfortunately, the momentum is not picking up in building the infrastructure and the capabilities in the renewable energy. And therefore, unless the renewable energy can really catch up, and again, it is more affordable, more economically competitive, and yet, unless the renewable energy capacity catches up with what's required, I guess the fossil fuel will continue to linger for a little longer than what we would like to see. The goal must be to cease all fossil fuel related emissions by 2050, replacing current emission practices with low and non-emitting solutions such as renewable energy. Hydrogen energy is also another option. Also, going towards circular economy can ensure rapid transition from maintaining economic progress without any penalty on the environment. This is a huge challenge that will require massive concentrated effort led by progressive governments as well as large industry houses. Once the taste of economic progress using RE is proven, then I think it will catch up very rapidly. We, in our own country, have also proposed some time back the one sun, one world, one grid kind of a concept, where we say that the sun never sets. In other words, if we can combine geographic locations both to the east and west of our own location, we can increase the sun radiation for more than 5 hours, maybe take it to even 15 hours, and that will be a huge plus. So there are many policy solutions, options available. Not simple. There will be complications, but the solutions can be found. Other part is when we talk about policy shifts and restoring nature, it will be good to look at the solutions that are nature driven, or nature based solutions. So ecological restoration can help to achieve 30% of the carbon neutrality emissions. It is as simple as that. Integrating social, environmental, and economic goals is the core requirement. Finding nature-based solutions, NBS as it is called, actually helps climate action. NBSs are basically actions that work with and enhance the nature so as to help people adapt to change and disaster. So nature-based solutions actually also build our resilience for the disruptions. So these are all kinds of things that are now emerging, and many people are focusing on that. Going forward, we have seen that in the past, there have been many initiatives. The Green New Deal that was talked about during the Trump era, again, it has not gone far. There is another approach about the donut economy by British economist Kate Raworth that has caught on the imagination. It talks about doing economically gainful activities within the planetary boundaries. And that can be done, and it's being tried at a couple of cities in EU, and so on and so forth. In all this, why are the cities so important? Because they occupy only 2% of the Earth's surface, but they are responsible for almost 70% of the greenhouse gas emission. They also generate about 75% of the global domestic product, GDP. And of course, they are epicenter for the growth for the increasing population, which already is touching 50%. It may be 60% very soon. The warming climate combined with the urban heat island effect will exacerbate the pollution in cities. So cities have a unique problem, extremely vulnerable to climate impacts, not just in terms of dangers or hurdles in functioning and productivity, but also to their financial effects on the city's budget. Urban density center creates a possibility for a better quality of life and a lower carbon footprint with efficient construction, efficient infrastructure and planning. Hence, it is essential to make cities an integral part of the climate action. In fact, the city planning itself should be made to work for climate action. Strategic local action intervention in cities as a unit of change will collectively result in large-scale global emission reduction. What is important to understand that although we are talking about the global problem, the solution must emerge from local situations. And that is where cities that contribute hugely, both ways, negative and positive, should really play an absolutely pivotal role. It is for this reason that we chose the Pune metropolitan region, PMR, and this takes me back to a conference that we had organized long ago, where I was lucky enough to get my old boss, Dr. Abdul Kalam, APJ Abdul Kalam, then the president. Earlier, he was the boss of the defense. So when he came for that conference, and in his final remarks, he said, "What you want to do elsewhere, why don't you start with your own city?" And that was the beginning of our thought process that yes, we must start making Pune the real showcase what should be there, and that was the start of my thinking and PIC thinking on making Pune carbon neutral by 2030, which is what the IPCC also would like to see that. So PMR is an ideal role model as it is still in the development stage. More than 60%, 65% development is yet to happen, and therefore much can be done before it gets too late. PIC has also launched a major initiative, therefore, in making PMR carbon neutral by 2030 in collaboration with the local governments and local leaders. And this report was launched in January 2020 by our own Environment Minister, Mr. Aditya Thackeray. We, of course, lost momentum because of the COVID, but then we are slowly getting back to it and then trying to rejuvenate and get back to our desired activity. The main goals that we set out to achieve by 2030, first was, of course, the energy efficiency improvement and the lifestyle changes for reducing overall energy demands of the PMR by 30% by 2030. Please mind what I said just now. Just by energy efficiency improvements, you can reduce our 30% carbon footprint. Second goal was boost solar electricity generation and distributed mode rapidly to replace thermal power from the PMR. Again, here thought was that given the jurisdiction of PMR, perhaps one could even design a microgrid for the entire PMR, which could be largely supported by the renewable energy generation within the jurisdiction of PMR. Third goal was reduce transportation sector CO2 emission with improved public transportation and the transition to e-mobility with RE charging. Transition to e-mobility has got momentum and many things are happening. What is not happening as yet is the RE charging. Unless we are charging the e-vehicles with renewable energy, then we are unnecessarily loading the present grid, which still consists of something like 70% of the fossil fuel contribution. So in fact, we will be reversing the whole trend unless we insist on RE charging for all the e-vehicles. Of course, efficiency of e-vehicles is much more, so there is a plus point. But in terms of carbon neutrality, it is very essential that that additional load of charging the e-vehicles will have to be taken up by the renewable energy. Our fourth goal was enhance sequestration capacity of the PMR by 300% in 10 years. So that means every few years we need to double our capacity of sequestration. And given the PMR area that we have surveyed, it is distinctly a possibility. Goal 5 was plan the urban development with clusters of modular green townships designed for self-sufficient carbon neutrality. So we are actually promoting that instead of growing vertical, where there is space, it may be more wise to grow horizontal by designing modular green townships that are independent, that are well contained, and that are carbon neutral, inherently carbon neutral. So they will be, as a collective, they will be more resilient to the climate disruptions. Sixth goal was initiate R&D and innovation for artificial removal of and storage of carbon dioxide, because we realize that given what is happening, the rate at which the carbon dioxide levels are increasing, the national sequestration alone may not be adequate, and therefore we may need to create an additional capacity via the technology route. There is a danger that once it succeeds, people will think that technology will solve all the problems, and we need not do so. But I think little thinking, a little introspection should bring us very clear that it is a solution and that should not be created to allowed to become a problem. Last point was enhancing people's awareness for a shift to low carbon lifestyle for a stable environment that can provide a future for our next generation. For instance, when we buy a building and the buildings last for 50, 60 years or even more, when we purchase a flat in a building, we have a choice of deciding what kind of building we want to buy. Do we want to buy the buildings that are rated by 5-star, the energy rating? Do we want to buy buildings where it is supported by solar energy, both for heating and for electricity? Do we want to buy a building? Well, these buildings will have a delta cost. But then if you do all this, you are actually saving a huge cost, huge penalty to the nature and to your own health. It is these kind of goals that we thought about, and we are pursuing them to see how we can proceed. So, what is the topic? Oh, sorry.
Way to the future.
I am not able to see my own screen that way.
You can.
Okay. So ultimately, therefore, this topic of today, why carbon neutrality is the gateway to the future. We are in the age of consequences where what humanity does for the next 10 years will determine what we would do for the next 100 years. Carbon neutrality will be critical because without that, we will be going in the reverse direction. World is moving to heavy dependence on digital technology, whether it is IoT, Internet of Things, whether it is artificial intelligence. In everything, we are going to be moving for energy intensive activity. All the more reason that clean energy, renewable energy must be available in abundance, that will be for restoring the environmental balance despite chasing human aspirations. Enhancing energy efficiency and the famous RRR, reduce, replace, renew, will be the new way of life. Electric vehicle transition is absolute must, along with the battery and storage technology that is making very promising advances. And of course, we have to really look at all possible alternate clean energy technologies. Hydrogen would be one of them. And we have in our country have just recently launched the hydrogen mission. It has got both potential as a storage as well as generation. So there are all kinds of things. Of course, the new affordable means for removing CO2 from air will have to succeed. Actually, it will be a negative carbon performance in a way. And other thing that comes to my mind is that artificial intelligence, as we see it, the next generation artificial intelligence can actually be designed in such a way that it will help achieve carbon neutrality by its own design. So future is bright provided we do the right things for regaining the ecosystem and for making sure the next generation will have a future, and next generation is already very much more sensitive for preserving the quality of life on Earth and beyond. I will end my discussion with a little small 2-minute clip which talks about carbon sequestration. Artificial.
When finished, it will have a central drum with panels of the special plastic and a humidity control system. By altering the moisture levels, it will absorb and then release the CO2 for storage. This process requires no chemicals, only a very small amount of energy and a water supply.
The vision of the future for these kind of artificial trees is that they can capture the carbon dioxide nobody else can capture. That's their advantage, that is their strength.
They estimate that a single tree will absorb about a ton of CO2 a day, about 75 cars worth. 60 million trees could potentially absorb all the CO2 we currently emit. And that's not all.
This is one of the few options available to actually go back and reduce the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere from the level we are already at or will be in 50 years from now, back down to where it is safe.
All this absorbed carbon dioxide would, of course, need to be put somewhere. But that's where other new technologies come in, like the geological storage of CO2 that's being tested in Utah. And because CO2 levels are the same around the planet, a great forest of artificial trees could be placed right on top of storage sites, so the CO2 wouldn't have to be transported.
Okay, so that was a kind of a bird's eye view of the problem. Climate change, global warming, solutions are major, huge problems. And at PIC, the group on energy, environment, and climate change are trying to do their best in trying to find solutions, encourage people, spread awareness, many things we are trying to do. It's probably time will not be enough. In fact, I was telling my friends that this is a subject where one could talk for days, and how I want to put it in 45 minutes. Luckily, I think I managed to put some kind of a understanding, I hope. And so I'll stop here and thank you everybody for taking interest in this subject, which is very vital. I'm also very encouraged to see the participation is over 100, which means people are really interested.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a very, very good talk, and you covered a large range. I would say from a normal tree to an artificial tree, and it was wonderful to know the details therein. And for me, I could say that I was not aware that big companies like Google have taken so much of efforts and ensured that in spite of huge energy consumptions in terms of maintaining the servers and maintaining such a big software, they have come to a carbon neutrality concept and have brought it to zero. This is something which is really phenomenal, and thank you for a very good talk, sir. There are many questions here. I'll take them one by one. Yeah. So the first question is by Dr. Ashok Kaushal. He says that most countries are committing carbon neutrality by 2050 or 2060. We are yet to see the date for India. Can we have a milestone which can be appreciated in our lifetime, say in next 10 years or so? So,
well, actually, to answer that, in all honesty, 2047 will be an ideal milestone for us to achieve carbon neutrality, because it will be 100 years since our independence. Mm. But for reasons better known for many strategic thinkers, we do not want to yet commit that, because then that becomes a burden on a developing country that is yet on a growing curve. Unlike the European countries and other countries that can easily say that we will not use more energy, we are not in a state where we can accept that. So our energy consumption is bound to increase, and yet we have to do everything possible to see that energy consumption comes mostly from the renewable energy or other sources, so that we don't go on. So what India has committed is the energy intensity of GDP that we have said we will reduce, but we have not quantified per se by which year we will be carbon neutral. Personally, I think we can be carbon neutral by 2047. We may even try it without talking about it. That's my answer.
Thank you, sir. Arnaz Dolakia, he has asked, geoengineering is seen by some as a distraction from the real challenge of climate change in much of the scientific community. Although some tests and experiments have proven them to be a way forward. Due to the shaking economy and GDP of countries and the world, could these solutions be the way forward given that they are expensive?
Well, the honest answer will be they are not only expensive, they are unknown, they are unproven. Having said that, they are also dangerous in the sense that we do not know what is the plus and minus side of the whole geoengineering kind of effort. Many experiments are being tried out at a small scale to understand all that. In fact, much less dangerous or hazardous would be to go in for micro nuclear reactors, which are there in the submarines anyway. So there are all kinds of thoughts going on to see that if the conventional known RE sources do not catch up with the demand, can we look at other things to help mitigate the global warming? And can we push ahead so that there is no economic penalty, no serious economic penalty to the human aspirations? After all, ultimately, the fallback point, the bottom line is human aspirations. How do we keep the human aspirations alive, and how do we maintain the balance in the nature? I think that's the challenge.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you. The next question is by Shibu Nair. He is asking, has it been proven that the total energy invested in making solar cells versus energy harvested from it, is it beneficial? Can you throw some light on it?
Well, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that the total energy used for creating solar capacity should be also green, and it's already happening to a large extent. I don't have the exact numbers, but many countries, many companies particularly, like Google said, they are going 100% carbon free. What they are doing? That means they will purchase carbon credits, they will purchase renewable energy where they can. So that's an interim stage where people will do everything possible to see that the penalty on the environment reduces as much as possible. So even each and every manufacturing, each and every human activity, for instance, we are talking about electronic chips. We know that the cost of the chip will come down to even less than paper. But then there is an environmental cost, because that chip will finally run out of its time and then it will have to be thrown. So it is not just simple economics. It's not just simple calculation. It's a very complex issue. But there are many brains are working on this area. I think our group is very small to really comment on it. I wish them all the good. I think eventually in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, when the shoe pinches really hard, much more momentum will be seen in all the activities that will go towards maintaining the progress momentum and yet preserving what is our own. There is no planet B. There is no plan B.
Yeah.
We have only our own planet. And if we destroy it, then we destroy ourselves. That realization is sinking in. And therefore, every possible effort is being done to see that human activity, human production, human innovation, whatever you want to do it, is done with as small a signature as possible, carbon signature, so that at some point we can create a negative carbon technology to compensate for it. This is my own feel.
Yeah, yes, sir. In fact, sir, if I may add, in this new concepts of solar energy, there is a concept of infrared harvesting as well. So the energy which is available in the night, can also be used, in which case probably we'll have a better equation of energy consumption vis-a-vis the energy generation. So
Absolutely.
that is also.
Absolutely. All those things are being very much possible. And you and I both are physicists. So we know that physicists will keep working for the solution.
True, sir. True. Yes. So the next question is by Meher Padamji. She is asking, geological storage, would that not cause seismic changes in the years to come? And why aren't countries talking about nuclear energy? These are the two questions. Yeah.
Yes, I think I answered partly. Geological storage of certain capacity, beyond certain capacity, can of course create problem. So I'm sure the wisdom will prevail that geological storage of energy we are talking about, in whatever form, even hydrogen is an energy storage medium. So all these things will be taken care of because nobody wants to further cause more damage. Second question about nuclear, as I said, there are two options. One is, of course, is the concept of distributed generation using compact micro nuclear reactors, which will be next gen kind of devices, which will not have any proliferation concerns, nor will it have too much of the wastage concern. Yet there is one, that ITAR experiment which is going on, international effort, in converting nuclear energy by fusion chain reaction, and that is apparently already has hit the milestone where more energy has been derived than what was consumed. So the break-even point is already happened or is happening. Now the question is whether the same break-even technology can be upscaled to the scales that are required. Then we are definitely in an energy plus kind of a scenario, and that will be totally non-polluting energy. So all these things are definitely happening. To the extent that I can understand, I think the future is very bright. Many things are happening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. There is a next question by Aaron John. Could you please enlist the sources which economically incentivizes carbon neutrality, like carbon credits of Kyoto Protocol? You said a little bit of it on the earlier question, but yeah.
Actually, Aditi, you are there? Hello, Aditi? Can you switch off, activate your mic? I think she can answer. Yeah. Can you answer that? I'm getting a little bit tired. I can walk, I can talk. But sure. Aditi, can you answer that question about carbon trading? How far it can help?
So, hello, carbon trading, when we researched about it, the reason why it didn't work to the extent it was expected is because the use and misuse of it both were counterbalancing each other. So the actual problem of emission reduction did not get addressed, and emissions globally kept on rising. But there are other ways in which carbon neutrality actually has economic incentives, which is like sir said earlier, people are already buying renewable energy or supporting renewable energy projects or sequestration projects elsewhere to show it in their carbon budgeting or carbon accounting. And there are also some industrial frameworks like ESG which are coming into place, which consider environment, social and governance involvement by industries.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Aditi. Sir, can we take one more question as a last question, if it is okay with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so because that question is quite interesting. It's by Ravindranath Chandran. He says that what is the role of plastic in carbon neutrality, and how do you see the solution to this in our country?
It's not really role of plastic. The question is how can plastic also can be used. So again, Aditi, may I request you to help out?
This is a very important question because plastic, in fact, is one of the byproducts, manufactured from one of petroleum byproducts. So not just the issue of waste generation, but using plastic itself is actually having more fossil fuel extracted from the ground. So we really need to rapidly shift to alternatives to plastic. And if at all, wherever we are using plastic, we should try to make it one which can be recycled or reused in some other format. And there are also, like in Pune or in many other cities, there are some startups which have come up to fill the waste which already exists. And if you have heard, even cities like Indore have also attempted pyrolysis and other mechanisms to address plastic. But even with all these efforts, the fact remains that plastic industry itself predicts that their production will raise 4 times in the next by 2050. So we need to be careful and have a strategic plan on how to address the plastic pollution. Thank you.
Yes, yes. In fact, I do know of some companies in Pune where they use the waste, plastic waste, and they are trying to convert it into renewable fuel. So many.
That is also there. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sir. So shall we stop, because there are many questions.
They are welcome to send us the email questions. We will do our best to answer all your questions.
Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you. And there is a question stating, is this recording and the slides available? So the answer is that yes, it is available. The proceedings and this lecture is being recorded, and you'll get it on the PIC website. The link, you'll get it on the PIC website.
Yes. And good to know that even while we close, there are 100 participants still there.
Yes, yes. And also to those whose questions remain unanswered, kindly contact Professor Mallik. You can write to him, and I'm sure he will be happy to.
It's Climate Collective Pune, all one word, at gmail.com. Climate Collective Pune at gmail.com.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you for your time and for an excellent talk. And I would say that this is the highest PIC Adda attended talk. So we are very happy for it. And thank you, everybody. Any closing comments from anybody in the panel? If not, we can close the session. Kelkar, sir? Abhay?
No, I just want to congratulate session.
Thank you, Sangeeta, and thank you, Professor Mallik. It's a wonderful talk, something that we would like to revisit over and over again.
Huh?
Thank you.
Yes,
okay, thanks a lot, Abhay, and thank you, Kelkar, sir, and thanks a lot, Mallik, sir, for an excellent talk. Thank you, and we can close the session now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.